What's going on, everyone? So, the other day I talked about how the Los Angeles Lakers ended up with the number one pick in the 2025 G League draft and ended up taking Dillon Jones and broke him down as a player that I think could potentially, make some sense on this roster. Think of like a Jordan Goodwin type player. But then the Lakers turned around and traded him and they got assets, they got picks for, future acquisitions and moves and things like that. But they also ended up getting Will Richardson. So I want to talk about the trade and I want to talk about Will Richardson. And, if he's somebody I think could make the roster at some point or whatever. And the reason I like now more than ever talking about the G League players and acquisitions. It's not something I really talked about very heavily in the past years, but I do think it is something that is prevalent now because of the way that the NBA is trying to kind of, mesh the two together, but also the Lakers in particular have made it such a big point to kind of create this farm system, kind of, with Mark Walters, stuff like that. You think of the Dodgers and the farm system with the Dodgers and all that stuff, and how they, the Lakers want to do something similar, where you're kind of creating and developing guys in the G League team, and then that filters into two ways, and then into the main roster, guys go out, new guys come in, and it's just this cycle of players coming in and out. New CBA makes it to where you need to find these diamonds in the rough. You need to find these players that you can come in, even if they're not starting level or, your sixth man, even just to have a seventh, eighth, ninth guy that you can end up picking out of, the well of players that you're growing and developing. And then if you can get a guy that, eventually becomes a starter or, becomes a sixth, seventh guy, like that's just huge for this team. So I do think it's important to kind of talk and highlight some of the guys on the G League affiliate because, again, the Lakers do eventually want to bring some of these guys into the main roster. But like I said, the Lakers had the number one pick. They ended up taking Dillon Jones, who I actually thought was a guy that could have made the roster. They ended up trading him for multiple first-round picks. It actually turned out to be 2 picks, as well as Will Richardson. As far as Will Richardson goes, I actually think Dillon had a better chance than Will. Will is a 6'5", versatile kind of combo guard. He's listed as a point guard. He's a guy that can make some plays, played for Oregon, right? He's a guy that the Lakers even worked out back in 2022. He was a guy that the Lakers had and brought in and had their eyes on potentially bringing him. So he's a guy that the Lakers have, he's been on the Lakers' radar for a couple years now, and now the Lakers finally got him. But a couple things. One, he's 26 years old, right? So, he's probably closer to his ceiling than his floor. Not that, Dillon Jones was like, 19 or anything like that, but talking still like, 2 years older, it's the difference, right? For development and stuff like that. Lakers have been very fascinated with ball handlers, right? Like, I get it. You have Austin Reeves, you have Luka Doncic, right? LeBron James, Marcus Smart, Gabe Vincent. You've seen like, all those guys are out and you only have Austin Reeves, but like you have Nick Smith Jr. There we go. That you're developing. You have Chris Menon, who, again, could be a guy that could be an initiator for you, kind of like a bigger Gabe Vincent for you. Think of like a guard version of Jared Vanderbilt, who, again, is just younger and I think closer to being NBA ready. Will Richardson, granted, we haven't gotten a ton of NBA action with him that to properly assess and judge, but it's not like he's like completely dominating the G League. I mean, he's good. He's not bad, but he's a guy that is looked at. He's a better 3-point shooter. Neither guy, Dillon nor Will, are ultra athletes, but believe it or not, Dillon is actually a better he has a better vertical. He had 35 and a half inch vertical, where Will is actually like a 31, 32 inch vertical. So he's not a guy that is super explosive. He's not a guy, he's kind of more crafty, but the idea is that he would be like a bigger Gabe Vincent, right? A guy that could defend, a guy that could hit the open shot. He had a season, not last season, but the year prior, he shot well into the 40s percent from 3-point range. And then last season was just under 38% on just under 5 attempts in the G League from that. So the idea is that like he's a guy that could play either guard spot for you, even the 3. because he does have his wingspan is listed anywhere from 6'9" to like I've seen like 7'2". So let's like meet in the middle and call it like 6'10". So he has basically like a 6'10" wingspan. So he's got the length, he's got the size, a guy that can, again, hit the shot. He's good defensively because he has that long wingspan. So he's really good at disrupting passing lanes, and a guy that, projects to be able to defend 1 through 3 for you, and even on occasion some 4s. So he doesn't have the athleticism and the explosiveness that you'd be looking for on the defensive side, but he is a guy that can, project to be that kind of 3-and-D kind of guard wing that you could deploy out there alongside a Luka Doncic and an Austin Reeves to go and slot in. Personally, if I'm being honest, I don't think Will Richardson, I don't think he'll ever actually make the main roster. I think that this was just a move to, because again, even Dillon Jones, I even talked about in my breakdown video, I don't know if he actually ever makes the main roster. The idea and projection of him, again, would be like a bigger Jordan Goodwin, right? A guy that can get after it defensively, do the hustle plays, do the dirty work, but really struggles shooting the 3 ball. But if you can kind of get him to be serviceable, like, I just thought you're better off going with guys like Chris Menon, guys like that you can bring in, or Arthur Kaluma would be like a bigger version of that. I just think the Lakers have kind of their guys already. So I feel the same way with Will Richardson, that I just think Lakers kind of already have their guys already. I think all this was that they needed to get a player back in the trade. So it's like, hey, we'll give you Will. Lakers land him, and really it's about getting the picks, right? Because now they can make other moves if a guy becomes available that they really like, and then they can go and make a play. I wouldn't even be shocked if, later on down the road this season, you end up hearing that they end up making a move, right? Like, so, again, most of these guys that they're getting, you could have argued you should have went and got Tyler Smith, who is a guy, 6'9", slot in 3 through 5 for you, right? Like, he went number 2 in the draft. But, did the Lakers kind of plan on drafting it? Maybe because they did trade him pretty quickly. So it is possible that was already being worked out, that they were already kind of like, hey, we're going to draft this guy to trade him rather than drafting the guy to keep, where if you would have got Tyler Smith, you drafted the guy to keep. And then, you could look like, hey, Lakers, again, have like an Arthur Kaluma, a couple guys that, they could look to bring in. Eric Dixon, I know he ended up getting waived recently, so he could potentially, Lakers could bring him back at some point. Right? Like, there's other options out there that I think the Lakers are in good shape in. Once again, I just think that this was nothing more than just like bringing in a player in acquisition to then go and make a move. But I talked about Dillon Jones, and then of course he gets traded like shortly after. And, a lot of people pointed out like, hey, he got traded and stuff like that. So I figured, why not talk about Will Richardson as well? Not Will Richards, that's a different player. Will Richardson as well. Because, again, like, this is the Lakers' plan. They want to start to develop and build and grow that G League affiliate. And I do think at some point the NBA is going, because the NBA is already starting to improve. Like you saw, like they added another 2-way spot. They have like certain elements to where you can keep rights for G League guys and all this other stuff to play them and move them up and do all these things and make it harder for other teams to come and just pry them away. Where before it was kind of this free for all. Before it was just kind of like, hey, if anybody wants to steal your best G League guy at any point, they can. Now, they still can if they want to go to the main roster spot or something like that, but it's a lot harder. There's challenges, and I do think that the NBA is going to continue to do that, and I think that that's a direction that's why I think in part the Lakers are so adamant about carving out their affiliate team and carving out and doing moves to upgrade and improve that as well. And then also the training staff and coaching staff and all the other stuff down there as well to, again, have that cycle. The NBA will continue to progress to make that a thing. And I do think at some point you'll be able to do, like joint scrimmages. And I think you'll be able to have you can, like, I would love to see outside of like 2. I think that they should expand the 2-ways to at least 5 guys, right? Because I think you should be able to have a guy at each position. And I think you should, in concept, be able to have 2 guards, 2 forwards, and a big man, right? Well, right now it's like, if you need something else. So I do think that the NBA at some point is going to expand the two ways, expand, the connections between the affiliate and the main team, at least let you get some reps and some training. Maybe you can even, bring in guys that are on your G League into training camp, right? Like you can have some of those guys come into training camp and actually play in NBA games and kind of evaluate them and stuff like that. I mean, that's the whole point of like, the 10-day exhibit 10s, but you should be able, like if you already have a guy on a thing, like, and he's under your affiliate, you should be able to bring them up and then into, like training camp and stuff like that. And then also still have the exhibit 10. So that way you can get an array, right? Why not like allow teams? I mean, obviously you don't want teams bringing in 40 guys or whatever, but, kind of, have a cutoff and be like, hey, you can have this, 3 guys from the affiliate, then you have your, your two-way guys, and then you have your, or if you, like I said, expand the two-way guys, then you can do that, like move guys up into the two-way, bring in guys on Exhibit 10, kind of make it more versatile. But anyway, like I said, I think Will Richardson personally is just going to be just that. He's going to be a G League guy, nothing more. Again, I'm rooting for him. I always want to see people have success. So if he ends up working his way up and becoming a guy that the Lakers value and are like, hey, come in. If he was like 22, I'd probably feel a little different. But, him being 26, by the time he comes, like, even if you were to bring him on next season, he's 27. By the time he actually gets the NBA feel, he's probably 28, 29. I mean, he's probably already almost 30 by the time he actually becomes even just a rotation player at the end of the bench. So I just think this was just like, hey, we need a player in this type of trade. Let's just bring in this guy. Sure, no problem. But let's get the assets and the picks so that way we can then make other moves later on down the road. To me, this was more about an asset level trade rather than like, hey, we like Will Richardson more than Dillon Jones, right? You could argue that maybe because they did, like I said, they did work out Will Richardson back in 2022. So he is a guy that has been on the Lakers' radar, but we'll see. Anyway, as always, this is a discussion. I pass the question to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me out. We enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.